My name is Nancy Anderson, 32 years old, and I have always been the family black sheep. While building my career as an environmental attorney, I moved back home to care for my father with Parkinson's. My older brother Adam has resented my presence from day one, convinced I was manipulating Dad for inheritance. I hoped Dad's 70th birthday celebration would finally bring reconciliation. Instead, Adam raised his glass in front of everyone and told me to pack my bags. Before I tell you how one phone call turned my brother's smug smile into panic, drop a comment where you're watching from and hit subscribe to see more stories of family justice served. I grew up in an affluent neighborhood in Boston, where appearances meant everything. My father, Richard Anderson, built his reputation as one of the most successful corporate lawyers in Massachusetts. His commanding presence filled every courtroom and our home. My mother, Elizabeth, was the perfect socialite wife, balancing charity galas with impeccable dinner parties at our Beacon Hill mansion. From the outside, the Andersons were the picture of success. Adam, 4 years my senior, was groomed from childhood to follow in Dad's footsteps. He had the confident smile, the firm handshake, and the ruthless determination that made our father proud. I still remember how he would parade around in Dad's oversized suit jackets as a child, practicing objections in the mirror. Everyone said he was a carbon copy of our father, right down to the dimple in his right cheek when he smiled. I was different. While Adam thrived in debate club and mock trials, I spent my weekends volunteering at wildlife preserves and organizing campus cleanups. My passion for environmental protection confused my father at first, but soon he recognized my determination matched his own, just channeled differently. When I got accepted to law school and specialized in environmental law, Dad surprised everyone by expressing genuine pride in my choice. That was the first time I noticed Adam's congratulatory smile didn't reach his eyes. 8 years ago, our family foundation cracked when Mom was diagnosed with aggressive pancreatic cancer. The disease moved quickly, giving us barely 6 months to say goodbye. Mom had been the peacemaker in our family, smoothing the rough edges of Dad's intensity and mediating the growing rivalry between Adam and me. Without her, the tensions that had always simmered beneath the surface began to boil over. After Mom's funeral, Dad threw himself into work more intensely than ever, while Adam took over the family business side and financial affairs. He married Stephanie, a poised marketing executive who shared his ambition but none of Mom's warmth. They moved into a penthouse downtown, while I pursued my career, taking cases that often put me at odds with exactly the type of corporate interests my father and brother represented. Each family dinner became a thinly veiled battlefield of passive-aggressive comments and political disagreements. 3 years ago, everything changed again when Dad was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. The man who had commanded courtrooms with his booming voice and confident stride now struggled with tremors and balance. Adam arranged for a rotating staff of caregivers, but Dad hated the lack of privacy and the constant stream of strangers in his home. During a particularly difficult weekend visit, I found Dad alone, frustrated after firing the 3rd nurse in a month. The decision to move back home wasn't easy. I had built a life for myself, with my own apartment and a position at a prestigious environmental law firm. But watching Dad struggle stirred something deep inside me. Within a week, I had negotiated a remote work arrangement with my firm and moved back into my childhood bedroom at the age of 29. Adam was livid. Though he would never admit it, I think he was ashamed that he hadn't considered moving back himself. Instead, he channeled his guilt into suspicion, convinced I was positioning myself to influence Dad's will. During his weekly visits with Stephanie, he would inspect the house, questioning every decision I made regarding Dad's care, from medication schedules to meal plans. Dad, despite his physical challenges, remained mentally sharp. He appreciated my company, and we developed a new routine together. Mornings were for his physical therapy, which I helped him through while taking conference calls. Afternoons often found us in his study, where he would offer insights on my cases while I organized his medications. For the first time since Mom died, Dad seemed to find some peace. Adam interpreted this renewed father-daughter bond as manipulation. Every time Dad sided with me on a decision, Adam would pull me aside afterward. "You think I don't see what you're doing?" He once hissed after Dad agreed to donate to an environmental charity I supported. "You're playing the devoted daughter to write yourself into the will." No matter how many times I tried to explain that I genuinely wanted to care for our father, Adam saw only schemes and ulterior motives. His wife Stephanie was worse, barely hiding her disdain for what she called my sudden family devotion. Her perfectly manicured nails would tap impatiently whenever Dad would ask my opinion instead of Adam's during family discussions. As Dad approached his 70th birthday, I hoped the milestone might offer a chance for healing. I suggested a family gathering at the estate, inviting relatives from across the country to celebrate. To my surprise, Adam agreed enthusiastically, even offering to help with arrangements. For a moment, I allowed myself to believe he was extending an olive branch. I was wrong. I didn't know it then, but Adam had been meeting secretly with relatives, building a coalition against me. He had been carefully laying groundwork with the family lawyer, positioning himself as Dad's protector against my supposed manipulation. Dad's birthday wouldn't bring reconciliation, it would be Adam's stage for my public humiliation. Planning Dad's 70th birthday celebration became my mission. For 3 weeks straight, I devoted every spare moment to ensuring the event would be perfect. I created a photo timeline spanning 7 decades of his life to display in the grand hallway. I tracked down his favorite records from law school, hired a string quartet to play Mozart, his favorite composer, and even arranged for his former law partners to record video messages from across the country. This celebration would remind Dad of his impact, his legacy, and most importantly, how much he was loved despite his diagnosis. But at every turn, Adam interfered. When I booked Dad's favorite restaurant for a private dinner, Adam called the owner behind my back, claiming Dad had changed his mind and wanted the party at home instead. I only discovered this when the caterer called to confirm the home delivery address. When I confronted Adam, he shrugged it off. "Dad gets tired so easily now. Having people over is more practical." "I thought you would have considered his condition, but I guess I had to step in," he said, his concern for Dad sounding rehearsed. I adjusted my plans and arranged for a tented dinner in the garden instead. Adam then took issue with the menu, claiming the seafood options I had selected might interact with Dad's medication, though his neurologist had confirmed otherwise. Somehow, the final menu featured all of Adam's favorites instead. I spent hours creating personalized place cards with handwritten memories for each guest. The day before the party, they mysteriously disappeared. Stephanie showed up with printed alternatives, claiming I had asked for her help. I never did. 2 days before the party, I was arranging flowers in the foyer when I heard hushed voices coming from Dad's study. The door was slightly ajar, and I could see Adam sitting across from Harold Winters, our family lawyer for 20 years. Papers were spread between them, and Adam's expression was intense. "Everything is ready for tomorrow," Adam said. "Once we make the announcement, she won't be able to contest it. Dad's signature is legally binding." Harold looked uncomfortable, shuffling papers. "And you're certain your father understands what he's signing?" Adam's voice hardened. "My father trusts me to handle his affairs. Nancy has been taking advantage of his condition for years. This just makes official what everyone already knows." I backed away silently, heart pounding. Whatever Adam was planning, it involved legal documents and some kind of announcement at the party. Still, I couldn't imagine what he might have convinced Dad to sign. Dad and I spoke openly about everything, including his will and healthcare directives. He had assured me just last week that everything was in order, with both Adam and me sharing power of attorney and executor responsibilities. The morning of the party arrived with perfect weather, but imperfect deliveries. The cake arrived with the wrong inscription. The rented chairs were delivered to our neighbor's house. The florist brought lilies, despite my clear instructions about Dad's allergies. Each problem required frantic last-minute solutions, keeping me too busy to speak with Dad alone before guests arrived. My college friend Tara arrived early to help, immediately sensing my stress. As we arranged place settings under the tent, she kept glancing toward the house, where Adam was giving instructions to the waitstaff I had already briefed. "You know he's been calling people, right?" she finally said, keeping her voice low. "What do you mean?" I asked, though part of me already knew. Tara hesitated. "Your cousin Patrick called me last week asking if I knew anything about you. Mishandling your dad's care or money. He said Adam had concerns and was gathering information." My hands froze arranging silverware. Patrick and I had always been close. The thought of Adam poisoning that relationship made me physically ill. "That's not all," Tara continued. "Several family members received similar calls. Adam's been suggesting you moved home to control your dad's finances and that you've been neglecting his medical needs while pretending to care for him." I felt like I'd been slapped. So that's what today is about. Not celebrating Dad at all. "Do you think your dad knows what Adam is doing?" Tara asked. I thought about Dad's excitement for the party, how he had been looking forward to seeing everyone. "No, I think Dad is genuinely expecting a birthday celebration. And that's exactly what I'm going to give him, regardless of whatever Adam has planned." By 4 o'clock, guests began arriving. Dad's former colleagues, cousins from Chicago, old family friends, and neighbors filled the garden. Dad sat in his favorite chair on the patio, beaming as people approached to wish him well. His tremor was noticeable today, but his eyes were bright with joy. For his sake, I plastered on a smile and played the perfect hostess. I couldn't help noticing how certain relatives watched me with newfound suspicion. Aunt Patricia, who had always greeted me with warm hugs, now offered only a stiff cheek kiss. Uncle Robert, Dad's younger brother, kept a noticeable distance. Cousin Patrick avoided eye contact altogether. Meanwhile, Adam worked the crowd like a politician, moving from group to group, leaning in for conspiratorial conversations that stopped when I approached. Stephanie followed half a step behind, her red dress commanding attention, nodding solemnly at whatever Adam was saying. Occasionally, they would both glance my way, their expressions a mixture of pity and triumph. Several times, I noticed Adam escorting people into the house for private conversations, returning with them looking grave and concerned. Whatever evidence he was presenting was clearly convincing. The party I had planned, as a celebration, was morphing into something else entirely, a tribunal where I stood accused without knowing the charges. As dinner approached, Tara squeezed my arm. "Whatever he's planning, just remember who actually shows up for your dad every day. That truth doesn't change because of anything Adam says." I nodded, thankful for her loyalty, but increasingly anxious. As the sun began to set, the garden lights illuminated the tent in a golden glow. It should have been beautiful. Instead, it felt like stage lighting for the performance Adam had been rehearsing for years. The birthday dinner began on a beautiful note. Dad sat at the head of the table, looking distinguished in his navy blazer, his silver hair neatly combed. Despite his tremor, he insisted on raising the first toast himself. I helped him stand, steadying his glass as he thanked everyone for coming. The genuine joy in his eyes made all the planning worth it, regardless of Adam's schemes. The first course was served, Dad's favorite lobster bisque, and the conversation flowed easily around the table. Stories about Dad's courtroom triumphs mixed with fond family memories. For a while, I allowed myself to relax, thinking perhaps Adam had reconsidered whatever he had planned. From my seat beside Dad, I watched Adam across the table. He barely touched his food, checking his watch repeatedly, exchanging knowing glances with Stephanie. His smirk never wavered, like a man waiting for his winning lottery numbers to be called. Several times during the meal, he nodded slightly to various relatives who would return the gesture with subtle nods of their own. The coalition was in place, waiting for their cue. When the main course plates were cleared, I stood to propose a toast. This was the moment I'd planned to present Dad with a bound book of letters from friends and family, sharing how he had impacted their lives. I had spent weeks collecting these messages, believing they would mean more to him than any material gift. Dad, I began, raising my glass. 70 years of integrity, wisdom, and love. When Mom got sick, you showed us what strength really means. And when you got your diagnosis, you taught us about grace. Every day I get to spend with you is a gift, and I never got to finish. Adam stood abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the patio stones. If I may interrupt, he said, not waiting for permission. Dad, before Nancy continues with her touching speech, there's a family matter that can't wait any longer. He moved to stand directly behind Dad's chair, placing his hands possessively on our father's shoulders. The gesture was clear, this was a changing of the guard. For those who don't know, Adam continued, looking around the table, I've been increasingly concerned about my father's care over the past year. His condition requires consistent medical attention and financial management that needs to be handled with complete transparency and competence. I felt my face flush as Adam's implication hung in the air. Dad looked confused, glancing up at Adam and then over to me. As of this morning, Adam announced, producing an official-looking document from his jacket pocket, I have been appointed the sole executor of my father's estate and affairs, with full power of attorney, both medical and financial. The table fell silent. I stared at the document in Adam's hand, trying to understand how this was possible. Just last month, Dad and I had reviewed his legal arrangements together, confirming our shared responsibilities. Adam continued, his voice dripping with false compassion. This wasn't an easy decision, but after consulting with Dad's doctors and our family attorney, it became clear that the current arrangement was putting both Dad's health and assets at risk. Dad's expression shifted from confusion to distress. Adam, what are you talking about? We never discussed this. Adam patted Dad's shoulder condescendingly. It's okay, Dad. You don't need to protect Nancy anymore. We all understand you've been covering for her because you didn't want to hurt her feelings. He turned to address the table again. The truth is, Nancy has been deemed unfit to continue as Dad's caregiver. There are discrepancies in Dad's medical regimen and financial accounts that simply can't be explained away. The weight of his words crushed me. I looked around at our family and friends, seeing doubt and judgment in their eyes. Some looked away, uncomfortable with the public spectacle. Others nodded in vindication, as if Adam was simply confirming suspicions they'd harbored all along. Adam reached the crescendo of his performance, raising his glass high. To Dad's health and security, which will now be properly managed. And to Nancy, he said, his eyes locking with mine, you should pack your bags. You're finished here. Laughter rippled around the table, starting with Stephanie and spreading to those who had already been convinced of my guilt. Others joined nervously, not wanting to appear out of the loop. The sound washed over me like acid. Dad attempted to speak, his voice weak with emotion and the effects of his disease. There must be some mistake. Nancy has been taking excellent care. Adam cut him off smoothly. Dad, the documents are signed. Dr. Fitzpatrick confirmed your declining cognitive function makes you vulnerable to manipulation. That's why I had to step in. Harold has all the paperwork finalized. I looked toward Harold Winters, hoping for some explanation, but the family lawyer stared at his plate, avoiding eye contact. Whatever Adam had presented to him had been convincing enough to override years of professional relationship with my father. Tara stood up beside me. This is ridiculous. Nancy has dedicated the last 3 years to caring for her father. She's sacrificed her own life to be here. Thank you, Tara, Adam replied with exaggerated patience, as if addressing a child. Your loyalty to your friend is admirable. But you haven't seen the evidence. He produced a folder, opening it dramatically. The medical reports showing missed appointments. The prescription refills that were delayed. The withdrawals from Dad's, accounts that can't be accounted for. The accusations were outrageous, but delivered with such confidence that they carried the weight of truth. I watched as faces around the table hardened against me. Cousin Patrick, who had spent Christmas with us just months ago, now looked at me like I was a stranger. Aunt Patricia covered her mouth in shock. I felt as though I was drowning, unable to defend myself against this orchestrated attack. Every explanation I could offer would sound like an excuse against Adam's manufactured evidence. The birthday celebration I had planned with such care had become my public trial and execution. The worst part was watching Dad. His hands trembled more violently than usual, his face flushed with confusion and distress. The joy that had lit his eyes earlier was completely extinguished. On what should have been a day of celebration, he was forced to witness his children's worst conflict yet. I couldn't bear it anymore. With as much dignity as I could muster, I placed my napkin beside my plate and stood. Without a word, I walked away from the table, from the judgmental stares, from Adam's triumphant smirk. I heard Tara call my name, but I didn't stop. This was exactly what Adam wanted to drive me out, humiliated and discredited. To everyone watching, my exit would look like an admission of guilt. But I needed a moment alone to think, to breathe, to figure out how to fight back. Because if there was one thing I knew with absolute certainty, it was that I would not let Adam's lies stand unchallenged. I made my way through the house in a daze, barely registering the sympathetic glances from the waitstaff who had overheard everything. My feet carried me automatically to Dad's study, the one place in the house that always brought me comfort. The rich scent of leather and old books enveloped me as I closed the door behind me, finally allowing the tears to come. How could Adam do this? The calculated cruelty of his attack, timed for maximum public impact, showed a level of malice I hadn't believed possible, even from him. More shocking was how easily everyone had accepted his accusations without question, without giving me any chance to defend myself. I sank into Dad's leather chair, trying to make sense of it all. Adam had mentioned medical reports, missed appointments, delayed prescriptions, all complete fabrications. Dad and I attended every appointment together. I kept meticulous records of his medications, dosages, and refills. I even maintained a daily journal, documenting his symptoms and responses to treatment. The journal. My head snapped up as realization dawned. I moved quickly to Dad's desk, pulling open the bottom drawer where we kept his medical files. Under a stack of insurance forms was a black leather journal I had started the day I moved back home. For 3 years, I had made daily entries tracking every aspect of Dad's condition: his morning tremor ratings, medication times, food intake, exercise completion, cognitive assessments, mood notes, and even blood pressure readings. Flipping through the pages, I found the detailed notes from every appointment with every specialist. Dr. Winters, Dad's neurologist, had specifically commended my record keeping during our last visit, saying it provided invaluable data for tracking the progression of Dad's disease. Dr. Winters. The name triggered something in my memory. 2 weeks ago, Adam had mentioned running into Dad's neurologist at a charity event. He had seemed particularly pleased about the conversation, but when I asked for updates about Dad's treatment, he dismissed it as general pleasantries. Now I wondered what really transpired during that encounter. Had Adam somehow convinced Dr. Winters that I was neglecting Dad's care? That seemed unlikely given our consistent appointments and the doctor's own observations of Dad's stable condition under my care. Unless, a chilling thought struck me. What if Adam had never spoken with Dr. Winters at all? What if the doctor mentioned in those documents wasn't actually Dad's neurologist, but someone else entirely? Someone willing to provide medical assessments without ever examining the patient. With trembling hands, I reached for Dad's phone and dialed Dr. Winters' personal number, which he had provided for emergencies. Dr. Winters' office, this is Dr. Winters, a familiar voice answered after 3 rings. Doctor, this is Nancy Anderson, Richard Anderson's daughter, I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. Nancy, is everything all right with Richard? The doctor asked, concern evident in his tone. Dad's physically fine, but there's a situation I need to clarify immediately. My brother is claiming he has documentation from you stating that Dad has declining cognitive function and that I've been neglecting his care. He's used this to have himself appointed as sole power of attorney. There was a long pause on the line. I've made no such assessment, Nancy. Your father's cognitive function remains remarkably stable for someone with his duration of Parkinson's. And as for neglect, I've noted in every report that your care has been exemplary. In fact, I credit your detailed monitoring for our ability to optimize his medication schedule so effectively. Relief flooded through me, quickly followed by determination. Doctor, I hate to ask this, but is there any chance you could come to our house right now? Dad's 70th birthday party has turned into something of a family crisis, and I need your help to set the record straight. Another pause. This is highly unusual, but given the circumstances, I understand the urgency. I can be there in 20 minutes. I'll bring your father's complete file and my nurse as a witness. Thank you, I breathed. There's one more thing. Could you also bring a notary? I think we need to document whatever happens next. My nurse is actually a notary. We'll be there soon. As I hung up, my mind was already racing ahead, formulating a plan. I opened Dad's desk drawer and removed a small digital recorder he used for dictating notes. 3 months ago, when Dad had a particularly good day with minimal symptoms, we had used this device to record his healthcare wishes and preferences, a supplemental document to his formal advance directive. On the recording, he clearly stated his desire for both Adam and me to share power of attorney, with me as his primary caregiver. Armed with the journal, the upcoming testimony from Dr. Winters, and Dad's own recorded wishes, I felt a sense of calm determination replace my earlier despair. Adam might have orchestrated this public ambush, but he had made a critical mistake. He had underestimated how thoroughly I had documented everything related to Dad's care. I took a deep breath, straightened my dress, and wiped away the last traces of tears. The party guests would be expecting a broken woman, slinking away in shame. Instead, they were about to witness something very different. When I returned to the garden, conversations hushed immediately. All eyes turned toward me, most expecting to see defeat. Adam was standing near Dad, one hand still possessively on his shoulder, regaling the table with what appeared to be another tale of my supposed incompetence. His voice trailed off mid-sentence when he noticed me. Something in my expression must have alarmed him because his smug smile faltered. For the first time that evening, uncertainty flickered across his face. I walked calmly to my seat beside Dad and sat down. Dad reached for my hand under the table, squeezing it weakly in a show of support that nearly broke my composure. Adam quickly recovered, addressing me with exaggerated concern. Nancy, we understand this is difficult, but it's for the best. The movers will come tomorrow. We've arranged for a nice apartment for you downtown. I looked directly into my brother's eyes and smiled. You should have checked the medical records more carefully, Adam. His expression froze, a flash of panic quickly masked by confidence. I don't know what you're talking about. The records clearly show your negligence. We'll see about that, I replied calmly, checking my watch. In about 15 minutes, actually. Adam's eyes narrowed. What have you done? I took a sip of water, maintaining eye contact. I made one phone call. Just one. The uncertainty in Adam's eyes grew, and he glanced nervously at Stephanie, who looked equally concerned. This pathetic attempt to create drama isn't going to change anything, Nancy. The documents are legally binding. Yes, let's talk about those documents, Adam. I'm very interested to hear more about Dad's supposed cognitive decline that I somehow missed during our daily interactions and regular appointments with his actual doctors. Adam's face reddened slightly, but before he could respond, the dinner was interrupted by the sound of the doorbell echoing from inside the house. I checked my watch again and smiled. That would be Dr. Winters now. Dad's actual neurologist. With Dad's actual medical records. I wonder how they'll compare to whatever you've presented. The color drained from Adam's face so quickly I thought he might faint. He's busy. He can't possibly be here, he stammered. Actually, he was very interested to hear about medical assessments being attributed to him that he never made. The atmosphere at the table shifted palpably as confused glances were exchanged among the guests. Dad straightened in his chair, a spark of understanding and hope lighting his eyes. I stood up, smoothing my dress. I should greet our guests. I'm still the hostess, after all. As I walked toward the house, I heard Adam behind me, his voice tight with panic. Nancy, wait. Let's discuss this privately. There's no need to make a scene. But making a scene was exactly what Adam had intended all along. He just never expected I'd be the one directing the final act. I opened the front door to find Dr. Winters standing on the porch with his nurse, Janet, both looking formal in their professional attire despite the late hour. The doctor carried a medical bag in one hand and a thick folder of documents in the other. Thank you for coming so quickly, I said, shaking his hand. Dr. Winters nodded gravely. When medical ethics are at stake, urgency is warranted. Is your father here? Yes, everyone's in the back garden. It's his birthday celebration. I gave a brief sad smile. Or it was supposed to be. I led them through the house toward the garden, explaining the situation in more detail as we walked. By the time we reached the French doors leading to the patio, Dr. Winters' expression had hardened with professional indignation. Our appearance caused an immediate stir among the dinner guests. Adam, who had retaken his seat next to Dad, stiffened visibly. Stephanie began whispering urgently in his ear, her perfectly manicured hand shielding her mouth. Dad, I called out, approaching the table. Dr. Winters stopped by to wish you happy birthday. Relief washed over Dad's face as he recognized his longtime physician. Dr. Winters. This is unexpected, but very welcome. Dr. Winters smiled warmly at his patient. Happy birthday, Richard. I apologize for interrupting your celebration, but it seems there's an urgent matter regarding your medical care that needs clarification. Adam stood quickly, moving to intercept the doctor. This is a private family gathering, Dr. Winters. Whatever Nancy has told you, I'm sure it can wait until a more appropriate time. Dr. Winters regarded Adam coolly. Mr. Anderson, I understand you've been making claims about your father's cognitive status and care management based on medical assessments supposedly coming from me. As his physician of record, I have both a professional and ethical obligation to address any misrepresentation of my medical opinions. The table fell silent. Every eye moved between the doctor and Adam, whose confident facade was crumbling by the second. Dad spoke up, his voice stronger than it had been all evening. I think we should hear what the doctor has to say, Adam. Adam's jaw clenched, but he had no choice but to step aside as Dr. Winters approached the table. The doctor nodded respectfully to the assembled guests. I apologize for interrupting this occasion, but I've been informed that there are documents being presented tonight that attribute medical assessments to me regarding Richard Anderson's cognitive capacity and the quality of care he's receiving. I need to state clearly, for the record, that I have made no such assessments. He opened his folder and removed several documents. In fact, my most recent evaluation from 3 weeks ago indicates that Richard's cognitive function remains within normal parameters, with no significant decline noted in the past year. His Parkinson's symptoms have been remarkably well managed, which I attribute in large part to the consistent care and detailed symptom tracking provided by his daughter, Nancy. Murmurs spread around the table as Dr. Winters continued. I have brought Richard's complete medical file, including all cognitive assessments, medication records, and appointment histories. I am prepared to review these records with the family attorney to clarify any discrepancies. Harold Winters, who had been silently observing, finally spoke. If I may, he said, approaching the doctor, I was presented with medical documentation indicating significant concerns about Richard's care and cognitive decline. The assessment was signed by a Dr. Fitzpatrick. Dr. Winters frowned. There is no neurologist named Fitzpatrick associated with Richard's care team. I am his primary neurologist and have been for the past 5 years. All eyes turned to Adam, who had begun to sweat visibly despite the cool evening air. Stephanie was inching her chair away from his, creating subtle distance between herself and the unfolding disaster. Adam attempted to regain control of the situation. There must be some confusion. Perhaps the name was recorded incorrectly. The substance of the concerns remains valid. Dr. Winters shook his head firmly. I've reviewed the records Nancy has maintained daily for the past 3 years. He held up the black journal I had retrieved from the study. This level of detailed monitoring exceeds any standard of care requirements. Every medication, every symptom, every therapy session is meticulously documented. If anything, Richard has received care that goes above and beyond what would be expected, even from a professional caregiver. Dad reached for the journal, flipping through pages filled with my handwriting. I remember this, he said softly. Nancy writes everything down, every day. She even tracks which foods seem to help with my symptoms. He looked up at the guests, many of whom now appeared deeply uncomfortable. Nancy has been extraordinary. I couldn't ask for better care. Adam's desperation was becoming palpable. Dad, you don't understand. There have been financial irregularities. Money missing from your accounts. Janet, Dr. Winters' nurse, stepped forward. As a notary public, I'd like to state for the record that I'm witnessing this conversation. She turned to address Harold. Sir, are you the family attorney who processed the power of attorney documents? Harold nodded, his professional composure beginning to crack. Yes, I am. Were you aware that Richard Anderson has a medical proxy document on file with our office, designating Nancy Anderson as his healthcare decision-maker, with a clear statement of his wishes recorded when he was demonstrably of sound mind? Harold paled. I was not shown that document. Adam tried to interject. That document is outdated. Dad changed his mind. I pulled the small digital recorder from my pocket. Actually, Dad's wishes are quite clear. This was recorded just 3 months ago, on a day Dr. Winters confirmed Dad was having minimal symptoms and full cognitive clarity. I pressed play, and Dad's steady voice filled the garden. Today is March 15th, 2025. I, Richard Anderson, am recording this statement of my healthcare wishes as a supplement to my formal advance directive. I am of sound mind and making this recording of my own free will. I designate my daughter, Nancy Anderson, as my primary healthcare proxy, with my son, Adam Anderson, as secondary proxy should Nancy be unable to serve. I make this decision based on Nancy's demonstrated commitment to my daily care and her thorough understanding of my medical needs. I trust her judgment completely. Adam lunged for the recorder, but Tara quickly intercepted, taking the device and stepping back. Adam, the whole table just heard that. It's Richard's voice, his clear wishes. Adam's face contorted with rage. He spun toward Harold. You assured me the paperwork was ironclad. That she couldn't contest it. Harold looked stricken. You told me Richard had been evaluated by a specialist who determined he lacked capacity when he designated Nancy as proxy. You provided documentation. Falsified documentation, I said quietly. Just like the financial records you mentioned, Adam. Tell me, what money exactly is missing from Dad's accounts? Adam's eyes darted around the table, seeking any ally, finding none. This is absurd. I've been protecting our father's interests. Dad slowly rose from his chair, his voice quavering but resolute. By lying about my mental capacity. By falsifying medical reports. By trying to remove the person who has devoted her life to caring for me. That's how you protect my interests. The full impact of what was happening seemed to finally hit Adam. His carefully constructed plan was collapsing around him, exposed as the fraud it was. In a desperate last attempt, he reached for the folder Harold had been reviewing. The so-called evidence of my negligence, I presumed. But before he could grab it, Dad's trembling hand came down firmly on the documents. Enough, Adam. I'm disappointed in you. Deeply disappointed. Those simple words from our father seemed to deflate Adam completely. He sank back into his chair, the fight suddenly gone from him. Janet, still in her capacity as notary, addressed the table. I'm prepared to witness any statements or document reviews necessary to clarify this situation. Dr. Winters has brought the official medical proxy document from our records, which can be verified immediately. Harold, looking thoroughly chastened, nodded. I believe that would be appropriate. If I've processed fraudulent documents, I need to correct this immediately. As Harold and Dr. Winters moved to a side table to review the documentation, the dinner guests began to process what they had witnessed. Aunt Patricia reached for my hand, her eyes filled with tears of regret. "I'm so sorry, Nancy. We should have known better. Cousin Patrick couldn't meet my eyes. Adam told us he had proof. That you were. I'm sorry." One by one, family members who had been so quick to believe the worst about me now offered awkward apologies. Their words washed over me without really penetrating. The only person whose opinion truly mattered was sitting beside me, holding my hand with what strength he could muster. Dad leaned close to my ear. "I never doubted you. Not for a second." Those simple words healed something broken inside me. Despite the public humiliation, despite the betrayal by my own brother, my father had kept faith with me. In the end, that was all that mattered. Across the table, Adam and Stephanie were having a heated whispered exchange. Her expression had transformed from supportive spouse to something much colder. Self-preservation, I realized. Stephanie was already calculating how to distance herself from the scandal Adam had created. Within minutes, Harold returned to the main table, his expression grave. "I must apologize profoundly for my role in this situation. It appears I was presented with falsified documents regarding Richard's cognitive capacity. The legitimate medical proxy naming Nancy as Richard's healthcare agent is valid and supersedes the documents I processed this morning. What's more," he continued, looking directly at Adam, "presenting fraudulent medical assessments to an attorney for the purpose of gaining control of another person's affairs is potentially a criminal matter." Adam's face went ashen. He looked desperately around the table, finding no sympathy, not even from his wife, who had edged her chair even further away. "Dad, this has all been a misunderstanding," he attempted weakly. "I was only trying to protect the family legacy." Dad shook his head sadly. "No, Adam. You were trying to control it. There's a difference." The birthday celebration had transformed into something none of us could have anticipated. As the truth emerged, so did Adam's true character, exposed not by my accusations, but by his own desperate actions. The evening wasn't over, but already the power had shifted unmistakably. Adam's scheme had backfired in the most public, most definitive way possible. And it had taken just one phone call to bring it all crashing down. As the guests processed the shocking revelations, an uncomfortable silence fell over the gathering. Dr. Winters and Janet discreetly stepped aside, giving our family space while remaining available if needed. Dad looked exhausted, the emotional turmoil taking a visible toll on his already fragile health. I leaned close to him. "Do you want to rest, Dad? We can continue this tomorrow." He patted my hand gratefully. "I think that would be best. But first," he said, raising his voice slightly so others could hear, "I want to thank everyone for coming to celebrate with me today. Despite some unexpected developments, having my friends and family here means the world to me." His grace in that moment was remarkable. As guests began to make awkward departures, offering birthday wishes tinged with embarrassment over their role in the evening's drama, Dad maintained his dignity. He accepted each goodbye with warmth, never once indicating the hurt he must have felt at how quickly they had believed the worst about his daughter. Adam remained seated, staring blankly at the table, while Stephanie had already begun making discreet calls, no doubt damage control to protect her own reputation. As the garden emptied, Adam finally looked up at me. "We need to talk," he said, his voice hollow. "In private." Dad started to object, but I squeezed his hand. "It's okay. I can handle this." Tara approached, concern written across her face. "I can stay if you want backup." I shook my head. "Could you help Dad get settled upstairs?" "I'll be fine." Once Dad was safely upstairs with Tara, I followed Adam to the study, the same room where hours earlier I had made the call that changed everything. He closed the door behind us, and for a moment I glimpsed genuine fear in my brother's eyes. "Nancy, listen," he began, his tone conciliatory. "Things got out of hand tonight. I admit I may have overstepped, but you have to understand my concerns were coming from a legitimate place. I crossed my arms, leaning against Dad's desk. Then enlighten me, Adam. What legitimate reason did you have for falsifying medical documents and trying to strip me of my legal rights to care for our father? He ran his hands through his hair, pacing the room. The family business is struggling, okay. The Williams account pulled out last quarter, and the Hendricks merger fell through. I've been covering the shortfall personally, but it's not sustainable. What does that have to do with Dad's care or making me out to be neglectful? Adam's expression darkened. You've been living here rent-free for 3 years, with access to all of Dad's accounts. Do you have any idea what this house costs to maintain? The medical expenses, the staff, everything. While I've been killing myself trying to keep the business afloat. So this was about money. I should have known. I took care of Dad because he needed me, not for financial gain. I've continued working my own job, remotely, the entire time. Adam scoffed. Your environmental crusades hardly pay enough to support yourself, let alone contribute meaningfully to this household. The dismissive way he referred to my career ignited a slow-burning anger. My work has meaning, Adam. I help protect resources for future generations. What exactly does your corporate law practice do besides make rich companies richer? He slammed his hand on the bookshelf. Don't lecture me about meaning. I've been responsible for preserving our father's legacy. The Anderson name means something in this city because of the work I've done. A thought occurred to me, something so obvious I was ashamed I hadn't considered it sooner. Adam, have you been taking money from Dad's accounts to prop up the business? His silence was answer enough. My suspicion deepened. That's why you needed control, isn't it? Not because you were concerned about Dad's care, but because you've been embezzling from him and needed to cover your tracks. It's not embezzling, he snapped. I am his son. I am entitled to protect the family interests. I walked to Dad's desk and opened the bottom drawer, pulling out the household financial files I maintained. Does Dad know you've been taking his money for the business? That you've been protecting family interests by stealing from him? Adam's face contorted with rage. I built that business. Everything I've done has been to preserve what Dad created. You have no right to judge me when you've contributed nothing. Except 3 years of daily care, I countered calmly. Except making sure he takes the right medications at the right times. Except helping him through physical therapy. Except being here every single day while you visit when it's convenient. My brother's composure crumbled entirely. You've always been his favorite, he hissed. Little Nancy, who could do no wrong. Even when you rejected everything he valued to chase your environmental windmills, he was so damn proud. Do you know what it's like living in that shadow? For a moment, I glimpsed the wounded child behind Adam's arrogance, a little boy desperate for his father's approval. But the moment passed, replaced by calculation as he straightened his posture. Look, we can still fix this, he said, his tone shifting to business-like efficiency. The family doesn't need to know about the financial situation. We can tear up tonight's documents, return to the original arrangement. You continue caring for Dad, I handle the business and finances. No one needs to know about certain transactions. I stared at him incredulously. You want me to help you cover up fraud? After you tried to destroy my reputation and take away my legal rights. His eyes hardened. If the business fails, we all lose. Dad loses his legacy. The Anderson name becomes associated with bankruptcy instead of success. Is that what you want? What I want, I replied slowly, is for you to take responsibility for your actions, not dig yourself deeper into corruption. A knock on the study door interrupted our standoff. I turned to find Dad standing in the doorway, supported by Tara. His face was pale, but his eyes were clear and focused. I heard everything, he said quietly. Adam froze, panic flashing across his features. Dad, I can explain. The business had cash flow issues, temporary ones. I was going to pay it all back. Dad made his way slowly into the room, lowering himself carefully into his leather chair. How much, Adam? How much have you taken? Adam swallowed hard. 800,000. But the Henderson deal is going to close next month. I can replace most of it then. The amount hung in the air between us. $800,000, taken without permission from our father's accounts. Money that was meant to ensure Dad's ongoing care and comfort. Dad closed his eyes briefly, absorbing the blow. When he opened them, there was a clarity and determination I hadn't seen since before his diagnosis. "I'd like to speak with Harold," he said. Tonight. Harold had remained downstairs, clearly feeling responsible for his part in the evening's events. When summoned to the study, he entered with visible trepidation. The family attorney looked years older than he had at the start of the evening. For the next hour, the four of us had the most difficult family meeting of our lives. Dad, despite his physical frailty, took control with the same commanding presence that had once dominated courtrooms. "Harold," he began, "I need you to draw up documents removing Adam from any position of authority in the family business, effective immediately. He is to have no access to company or personal accounts. Nancy will assume temporary oversight of business operations until we determine next steps." Adam started to protest, but Dad silenced him with a look. "I will not," Dad continued, his voice gaining strength, "be pressing criminal charges at this time. That would be a family destruction I'm not prepared to pursue. But make no mistake, Adam, there will be consequences." Dad turned to me. "Nancy, are you willing to take on this additional responsibility while continuing to oversee my care?" I nodded, though the prospect was daunting. "I'll need help with the business side, but yes, I can do this." Dad managed a small smile. "You've always been a quick study. And unlike your brother, you understand that integrity matters more than profit." Adam stood abruptly. "This is ridiculous. She knows nothing about running the firm. She'll destroy everything we've built." Dad's response was measured but firm. "You've already begun that destruction yourself, Adam. The firm can survive new leadership. It cannot survive dishonesty and fraud." As the reality of his situation sank in, Adam's desperation grew. He turned to Stephanie, who had appeared in the doorway, clearly eavesdropping on the proceedings. "Tell them, Steph. Tell them I can turn things around. The Henderson deal will fix everything." Stephanie's expression was cold, calculating. She glanced between Adam, Dad, and me, clearly assessing which alliance would best serve her interests. Her decision became clear as she stepped away from Adam. "I think I should call my father," she said, not meeting Adam's eyes. "He'll want to know about these developments. I'll be staying at the Four Seasons tonight. I need time to process this." The abandonment seemed to hit Adam harder than any other blow that evening. As Stephanie walked away without a backward glance, he sank into a chair, the fight draining from him completely. "Dad, please," he whispered. "Don't do this. The firm is my life." Dad's expression held profound sadness, but remained resolute. "You should have thought of that before you betrayed my trust. Before you tried to harm your sister's reputation. Before you stole from me." The finality in Dad's voice left no room for further argument. Adam looked broken, his carefully constructed world collapsed around him. He stared at the floor for a long moment, then stood and walked out without another word. The silence that followed was heavy with the weight of family bonds fractured, perhaps beyond repair. Harold quietly excused himself to begin drafting the necessary documents, leaving Dad and me alone in the study. "I never wanted this," Dad said softly, his tremor more pronounced after the emotional strain. "I wanted my children to support each other, not tear each other apart." I knelt beside his chair, taking his shaking hand in mine. "This isn't your fault. Adam made his choices." Dad squeezed my hand weakly. "Find a way to help him, Nancy. Not now, not soon. But someday. He's still your brother. Still my son." I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. Despite everything, Dad's capacity for compassion remained intact. It was a standard to aspire to, though at that moment, forgiveness seemed impossible. Dad's birthday celebration had ended in a way none of us could have imagined. The candles on his cake remained unlit, the gifts unopened. But something important had been illuminated nonetheless. The truth, painful as it was, had finally come to light. 1 month after the birthday that changed everything, the family mansion settled into a new rhythm. Dad's 70th year began not with the celebration we had planned, but with a period of rebuilding from the foundation up. The morning after Adam's departure, I found myself sitting in his office at Anderson Legal, surrounded by files I barely understood and a staff regarding me with skeptical curiosity. With my environmental law background, I had knowledge gaps when it came to corporate client management and firm operations. But what I lacked in specific experience, I made up for in determination and transparency. My first week was spent simply learning about ongoing cases, client relationships, and the firm's financial situation. The picture that emerged was concerning but not catastrophic. Adam had been right about one thing: the business was struggling. But his solution of secretly siphoning Dad's personal funds had only masked the underlying problems rather than addressing them. Dad's health, surprisingly, improved in the weeks following the confrontation. Dr. Winters suggested that the reduction in household tension might be contributing to the decreased tremors and improved sleep. Without Adam's looming presence and judgmental oversight, Dad seemed more relaxed, more himself. He began joining me in the home office several days a week, offering guidance on the firm's direction while respecting my autonomy in decision-making. I brought in a forensic accountant to untangle Adam's financial maneuvers. The full extent of his mismanagement became clear. $800,000 was just the beginning. He had been playing a shell game with accounts for nearly 2 years, moving money around to cover mounting losses while maintaining the illusion of prosperity. Yet even as I uncovered each new deception, I felt a complicated mix of anger and sadness. Adam had been my childhood protector before ambition and jealousy transformed him. The brother who had taught me to ride a bike and defended me from playground bullies was still somewhere inside the man who had tried to destroy my reputation. Dad noticed my conflicted feelings one evening as I reviewed the latest financial findings in his study. "You're thinking about Adam, aren't you?" he asked gently. I nodded, setting down the papers. I keep trying to understand how he got to this point, how he could justify what he did. Dad's smile was sad. Fear is a powerful motivator, Nancy. Fear of failure, fear of disappointing me, fear of not measuring up. Adam has been running from those fears his entire adult life. "But you never put that pressure on him," I protested. "You always supported both of us." "Sometimes the expectations we imagine are more powerful than those actually placed upon us," Dad replied. I should have seen it sooner. Should have addressed it before it consumed him. Despite everything, I couldn't bear to see Dad blame himself for Adam's actions. Adam made his choices, Dad. We all face pressure and fear. We don't all respond by hurting the people who love us. The hardest decision came 3 weeks after the birthday. The forensic accountant discovered evidence that Adam had not only taken money from Dad's accounts, but had also misappropriated client funds. This crossed a line from family matter to potential criminal activity that could affect innocent third parties. After a sleepless night, I sat with Dad in his room, the morning light casting long shadows across his bed. "Dad, we need to report this to the Bar Association," I said, my voice breaking. "If we don't, other people could be hurt financially. We could even be complicit if we knowingly conceal it." Dad closed his eyes, absorbing yet another painful blow. When he opened them again, they were clear and resolved. "Do what needs to be done, Nancy. The Anderson name has always stood for integrity. That doesn't change because my son lost his way." With Dad's blessing, I filed the necessary reports with the State Bar Association. Adam's license to practice law was suspended pending investigation. The news made local legal circles, bringing a public dimension to our private family tragedy. Some extended family members criticized my decision, arguing that protecting the family name meant concealing Adam's transgressions, not exposing them. Aunt Patricia was particularly vocal, calling me one evening in a state of agitation. "You've destroyed your brother's career," she accused. After everything he did to build the family business. I held the phone away from my ear briefly, gathering patience before responding. Aunt Patricia, Adam destroyed his own career when he chose to steal from his clients and his father. I'm trying to make sure no one else gets hurt. Always the perfect daughter, she scoffed. I suppose you'll be running the firm permanently now, just as you planned. Her accusation stung, echoing Adam's paranoia about my motives. I never wanted any of this, I replied quietly. I would give anything to go back to just taking care of Dad and doing my environmental work. But we don't always get to choose our challenges, only how we respond to them. After hanging up, I found Dad waiting in the hallway, having overheard my side of the conversation. He opened his arms, and I stepped into them, allowing myself to be comforted as I had been as a child. You're doing the right thing, Nancy, even when it's the hard thing, he murmured. I couldn't be prouder of you. His words healed something inside me that had been broken the night of his birthday. For all Adam's accusations about being Dad's favorite, I realized that what I had always wanted wasn't favoritism, but simply this acknowledgement of making difficult choices with integrity. One sunny Tuesday afternoon, about 5 weeks after the birthday disaster, I received a text from Adam. It was the first contact since he had walked out of the study that night. Need to talk. Coffee at Riverside Park, 2 p.m. tomorrow. I showed the message to Dad, uncertain how to respond. He thought for a moment, then nodded. Go. Listen. You don't have to agree to anything, but at least hear what he has to say. The following day, I found Adam sitting on a bench overlooking the river. He looked different, haggard, with dark circles under his eyes and clothes that hung slightly loose on his frame. Gone was the polished corporate attorney who had once intimidated boardrooms with his confidence. Thanks for coming, he said, not quite meeting my eyes. I wasn't sure you would. I sat beside him, maintaining some distance. Dad thought I should hear you out. Adam nodded, staring at the water. Stephanie filed for divorce. She's already dating a partner at Bradshaw and Klein. I wasn't surprised, but offered a simple I am sorry to hear that. A bitter laugh escaped him. No, you're not. You're probably thinking she showed her true colors, just like you always suspected. He wasn't wrong, but antagonizing him wouldn't help. What did you want to talk about, Adam? He took a deep breath. I wanted to ask if there's any way. Any possibility of fixing this? Coming back to the firm, making amends. The request stunned me with its audacity. After everything that had happened, he still believed there might be an easy path back. Adam, you stole from Dad. You falsified medical documents. You tried to strip me of my legal rights as his caregiver. You misappropriated client funds. These aren't mistakes that can be erased with an apology. His expression hardened. So that's it. One bad chapter, and my whole life is ruined. The perfect Nancy gets to run the firm while I'm cast out permanently. I stood, disappointment washing over me. This wasn't a genuine attempt at reconciliation, it was just another manipulation. You still don't get it. This isn't about me versus you. It's about choices and consequences. You're facing these consequences because of what you did, not because of anything I did. As I turned to leave, he called after me. What am I supposed to do now? Where am I supposed to go? I paused, looking back at my brother one last time. You could try taking responsibility, Adam. Really taking responsibility, not just looking for the easiest way back to what you had. It might be the only path forward. Walking away from that bench was one of the hardest things I'd ever done. Despite everything, part of me still yearned for the brother I had once admired, still hoped for a family reconciliation that might never come. But enabling Adam's evasion of responsibility wouldn't help him find his way back to himself. The following weeks brought new challenges and unexpected blessings. I hired a managing partner with extensive experience to handle the day-to-day operations of the firm, while I focused on client relationships and overall direction. To my surprise, I discovered aptitudes I hadn't known. I possessed negotiation skills, honed through environmental advocacy work, translated well to corporate settings. And my genuine interest in clients' needs helped rebuild trust damaged during Adam's tenure. Dad continued to improve, taking on an advisory role that gave him purpose without overwhelming his energy reserves. Together, we established the Anderson Foundation for Parkinson's research, channeling a portion of the firm's profits toward finding better treatments. The foundation became a shared mission that brought us closer than ever. 6 months after the birthday that changed everything, Dad and I sat on the patio one evening, watching the sunset paint the garden gold. The same garden where Adam had tried to humiliate me, now reclaimed as a peaceful sanctuary. "I've been thinking," Dad said, breaking our comfortable silence, "about second chances." I glanced at him, noting the slight tremor in his hands as he held his teacup. "What about them?" "Everyone deserves at least one Nancy. Even Adam." I sighed, looking out at the garden. "We've offered him chances, Dad. He's not ready to take responsibility." Dad nodded slowly. "Not yet. But when he is, and he will be someday, I hope, we can find a way to welcome him back, not to the firm necessarily, but to the family." His unwavering faith in redemption moved me deeply. Despite everything Adam had done, Dad still held space for the possibility of his return, still loved the son who had betrayed his trust. In that moment, I realized that true strength wasn't found in power, control, or even being right. It was found in maintaining the capacity for compassion, even after deep hurt. Dad, with his trembling hands and weakened body, possessed a form of strength Adam, with all his physical vigor, had never understood. "If there's one thing I've learned through all of this," I said, taking Dad's hand, "it's that protecting what matters doesn't mean controlling it. It means creating space for truth, even when that truth is painful. It means holding firm boundaries while still keeping the door open to healing." Dad squeezed my hand gently. "That wisdom will serve you well, Nancy. In business, in family, in life. The path forward wouldn't be easy. Adam's legal troubles would continue to unfold. The firm would face challenges requiring difficult decisions. Dad's health would have good days and bad. But something fundamental had shifted within me since that fateful birthday night. I had discovered my own voice, my own strength. Not the brash, controlling strength Adam had wielded like a weapon, but something more resilient, a steadiness born from facing public humiliation and emerging with my integrity intact. A willingness to make the difficult call, literally and figuratively, when everything was on the line. Sometimes the most profound changes begin with the smallest actions. For me, it was one phone call made in a moment of crisis, a single decision to stand up for truth rather than shrink away in shame. That call changed everything, setting in motion consequences none of us could have foreseen. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the garden, I thought about the journey ahead. There would be more challenges, more difficult calls to make. But I was ready to face them with the same courage and clarity that had guided me on Dad's birthday night. Have you ever faced a moment when everything you valued was threatened? When you had to decide whether to walk away in shame or stand firm in your truth? I hope my story reminds you that sometimes one brave action can change everything. If this story resonated with you, please leave a comment sharing a time when you stood your ground despite opposition. Like and subscribe if you want to hear more stories of family justice and healing, and share with someone who might need courage to make their own difficult call today. Thank you for listening, and remember your dignity is never determined by someone else's attempts to diminish you.